Welcome back to the Freedom Formula, where today I have a very special guest, Pete. And before I let Pete introduce himself, I'm a little excited to talk to you, Pete, and here's why. So I know you had read that I had owned 17 brick and mortar businesses way back when, and in my prime of business brick and mortar ownership. But it's one of those things where the end was never what I had in mind until the end was here. And there's so many business owners today that they're running a business, which is a glorified job to an extent. And everybody likes to call themselves a CEO of something. And like, I don't know, hate to break it to you guys, but if you're just a team of one or two, like it doesn't make you a CEO. If your business is doing 100 grand a year, it doesn't necessarily make you a CEO. It does, but it doesn't. Like just calling a spade a spade. Like, Elon Musk, he's a CEO right now, maybe not doing too hot, but he's still a CEO of a multi-billion trillion dollar company. So,
Yeah, for sure.
anyways, I'm just excited, Pete. I have my own questions because back in 2009, when I started my first business, there was no, let me think to exit this thing. And how do I truly scale this thing, not just hire one or two employees? And that's what you're really bringing to the table. So I'm excited to learn. But before we jump in, how'd you get here? What have you done? And why do we have the pleasure to kind of chat today?
Steve, thanks so much for having me. I think this is going to be a good one here today. And excited to be here with you and your listeners. And 30 years, 30 years I've been at it. And, in last September, I started my first, let's call it official business, because I had minor businesses before that, your lawn cutting type stuff all through high school and university and, all those kind of businesses. I was always doing something to make money on my own since I was probably 12. But my first official one was a franchise. I bought a franchise after school, after I finished university, and we did bathtub refinishing. We changed that harvest gold bathtub into white, and we did the same with all the dark oak, honey oak cabinets in your kitchen. We'd spray a kitchen, change it, give it a new facelift, so we had that business for 15 years from 94 to 2009 when we sold it. And I just had a call back in September from the gentleman that bought it from me. And he said, Pete, you had it for 15 years. I've had it for 15 years. It served us both well. Doing 1,000 bathtubs a year and all sorts of other stuff. So, multiple truck operation, all that kind of stuff. But at the same time, you had mentioned this idea about two businesses. And I've usually always had two businesses on the go through most of my career. About 2 or 3 years in, maybe 4 years in, I guess about 4 years in, I got an opportunity in 98 to buy another franchise. And it was an underperforming cleaning company, again, in the bathroom industry, specifically focused in bathrooms. So we were involved with bathrooms for the first, 15 years. And that cleaning company, at the time we bought it, had about 30 customers, doing really poorly and pretty much out of business. But I saw the opportunity, and over the next 10 years, we grew it 10x the business to 300 customers and sold it in 2009. So I got out of both of my businesses in 2009 because I had just finished up my executive MBA, and my sort of going into that in 2007, I said I want to transition into do something else. So I thought I'd go to work for big business for a few years, which I didn't end up doing because, as we all know, that was sort of the crash time, 2008, 2009. I became a realtor and a licensed business broker helping people buy and sell businesses, which is where I found our shoe store. And 15 years now, we've been next week will be our 15th year since we took over the initial shoe store that we bought. We bought another shoe store, moved it, closed it, major disaster. And we, at the same time during there too, we opened a third shoe store, which has been a really awesome business. And it celebrates its 10th anniversary next week, when the other one were 50. I mean, it's more than 15 years old, the first one, but it's our 15th anniversary of owning it. And through all of that time, I've created this business that runs without me. I just got back from a month off. And when I came back from a month off, I said to my team, what do I need to do? They said, nothing, we got you covered. And that's what I coach to, essentially, Steve, is this idea that whatever that level of comfort is for you, and I'm talking to you, the business owner listening here today, whatever that level of comfort for you is, we got to start working through some of these things in order to give you back the life that you want to live. Because one thing's pretty common with most business owners. It's like you got into business, or you're thinking about getting into business, depending on where you are in your journey, because you want a better life. And I know you talk a lot about health and wellness here on this show. If that better life is working 60, 70, 80, 90 hours a week, 14 hours a day, coming home, getting some sleep and doing it again, never seeing your family, never seeing your friends, never enjoying the fruits of your labor, okay, great. But if it isn't, we got some work to do. And that's sort of the whole purpose here, right,
Yeah, I
Steve?
love that. And it's, I started a brick and mortar. I owned all those locations, and there's fundamental skills, fundamental principles that are so transferable across all business ownership, all applications, right? You're selling a
For sure.
shoe and a sneaker, somebody else might be selling a coaching service. There are things that
Mm-hmm.
are going to apply, and it really just comes from that experience of doing it. And I appreciate you mentioning the fact that you had a shoe store that ended up failing as well, because
For
that's
sure.
where a lot of our lessons usually come from. And I feel
Whew.
like today a lot of people expect success almost 100% of the time, when the reality is, like, I wouldn't be sitting here today if it weren't for my failures. And there's plenty of them. Like, I like leadership, I
Mm,
like communication, those are important to me,
me too.
probably and definitely because I used to suck at those things. Like, I remember back when I
Yeah.
had some of my first employees, and I would say dumb stuff, and it's like, I don't have to say thank
Yeah.
you. Their paychecks, their thank you. And it's like, I'm appalled that I ever said that, but it now is a
Yeah.
part of the story, and I understand the mistakes that young Steve made that now more mature Steve can talk about and relate to people. So, that's really the thing that I'd like to jump into here. But talk about
Yeah.
the shoe store that didn't go well, and maybe another hard
Yeah.
lesson learned that you have throughout that, I guess, 30-ish year career now of owning businesses.
Like you, we've had some hard lessons. And I think, you know, there's a reason why only 7 or 8% of people are business owners, because not everybody can put up with that kind of risk laying on top of their mind
Yep.
every day. And I personally wouldn't change it for the world. And yeah, we've had some heavy cuts. We've had some heavy, deep problems over the years. Like you said, they're the learning things. They're the things that make you grow. They're the things that, give you strength in the future. Um, and I've had a few, but that one, I'll give you a sort of a lowdown on it. Our shoe stores are small town shoe stores, Steve. We're that shoe store in the small town, and I mean, they're good, solid shoe stores. But at the same time, it's like, we're there. We want to be your friend. We want you to come back. We want to serve you properly. We like all of these different things. Like, we know that small town
Yeah.
customer inside and out. And that's who we cater to. The one store that we're talking about was in a bigger center, was in a city. And we were trying to provide small town service, small town, um, you know, everything around it still had a small town culture. It didn't work in the city. It wasn't meant to be. And people didn't, quite honestly, they didn't give a shit. And it just was like all they were looking for was get me my stuff and get me out of here. And that's just not the way we operated. It's not the way everything was put together for the culture of this business. And for a variety of different reasons, um, and I'm pointing to me, for those that aren't watching this, I'm pointing to me as the biggest issue. I thought we could overcome all that stuff. I'm like, that's not a big deal. Well, it was a big deal. And it was a big enough deal that it cost me my cottage. I had to buy out a lease 2 years into a 5-year lease that cost me six figures. And there was all sorts of other costs, let alone just the lease. And then I had to liquidate a store full of stuff and lose money on all of that. And it was a big hit to me and my family. And I'm so glad that it was many, many years ago because it's long gone now. And it's like we've overcome all of that, and that's all good. But at the same time, at the time, it's hard. It's hard to go through those things. It's hard on the family. It's hard on the business. It's hard on the structure. It's hard on all that stuff. And it's not for
Yeah.
everybody. And for people that, can't take those heavy losses, because on the flip coin, there's heavy wins sometimes. And it's like, this is why I do what I do, because I just love the fact that the stuff that I put in and my team puts in and all the stuff we're working towards can have huge successes as well. And so, yeah, there's ups, there's downs, and we live them every day as entrepreneurs as we make decisions. And, we're always making decisions with the best information that we have. But one of the traps, the ownership traps out there, is that we often don't use other information as much as we think, because that bravado.
We feel it.
I
We
know
feel it.
better. And yeah, exactly. This is the best corner to place my store, or this is the whatever. But yet I haven't done the traffics, or I haven't, and you wonder why this one location's been in and out of business over the last 10 years, even though it's the best location ever. Just stuff like that. And you just kind of think you can overcome because you have in the past. So, these kind of things are normal thinking for a lot of business owners. And I think that's why, using a coach like you or me to kind of juxtapose certain things and say, hey, listen, have you ever thought of this, or did you look at this, or maybe you should think about it in this way, or let's pull it up and reframe this a little bit, because being a business owner is lonely. And all we have often is our own thoughts. And our partner at home doesn't want to hear about it anymore. Our friends don't know what the heck we're talking about because maybe they aren't business owners. Our team, even though we have an open door policy, come talk to me whenever you have, and I want to know your opinion. They don't necessarily always want to give you the opinion because you're still paying their check. Who do you talk to? Who do you go to? And that's the power of the community. And like I said, whether it's a coach like you or I, or whatever the case is, or whether you're talking to, your association. I'm a coach for the National Shoe Retailers Association, but I'm always talking to my other shoe store owners about what's going on, what's happening, keeping in the know, going through, because there's lots of other people that are going through the struggles that you're going through. Let's fast track them and get through them as much as we can through our own experiences, that we can help our friends, but also learn from them so that we can help ourselves.
Yeah. No, I like that. And, one of the things that I like to talk about here is relationships. And I think entrepreneurship, business ownership, like all of those things, it is a very lonely sport. And it's almost like this self-induced loneliness, because you don't want to make the phone call and ask for help because you have this ego that gets in the way, where it's, I don't want somebody to know that I'm not doing as great as them, or what they perceive that I am doing, and things like that. So, I guess cornerstone number one we'll jump in today, like the relationship side of things in business. How do you help people kind of grow that side? How do you, obviously still owning brick and mortars, grow that side for yourself? What does that look like for you today?
For me, I want to surround myself with people who are better than me, always. And as often as I can, I put myself in those situations so that I can learn. I have this mentality about always learning. And no matter, I've been in business 30 years, plan on being in business a lot longer too. I want to continue to learn. I want to continue to grow. And there are people out there. This is the beautiful thing too about business owners, Steve. Most business owners, when you ask them, they want to help. They truly do. They don't want to see you go through what they had to go through. The community, when we talk about that relationship, that community is so strong, and people feel the pain that they've been through, and they don't want you to go through it. So whether it's your local chamber of commerce, whether it's the association, if you're a chiropractor and you have the chiropractic association and you're going to those meetings and you're hopping on the Zoom calls and you're going to the yearly convention and all that kind of stuff, the best learnings can happen through those kind of communities. The relationships, your key customers. You should be taking your key customers out for lunch. You should be taking your key suppliers out for lunch, or, working through, if you have suppliers that help deliver your promise, whatever your promise is for your particular business, they need to be aligned with the culture of what you do. They need to understand what you're offering, and they need to understand what their position in your offering is, so that they can suggest and help you through some of the things even better. They're seeing it with everybody else that they supply. They're going to see best practices. When we were opening one of our stores, the one that's going to have its 10th anniversary here soon, I got together all of, like, not all of, but my top 10 suppliers. And I got them in a room around a board table, and all of them said, nobody's ever done this before. And I said, you know what? I would like all of you guys to come. And some of them are direct. It's like, most people know shoe brands, but let's just say New Balance and Brooks. They're two athletic shoe brands, running space, all that kind of stuff. I got them both at the table, and I said, listen, and all of the other brands that we were our key brands. And I said, guys, I really want your opinion. I want to start a new store. You know better than anywhere else where the gaps of your different brands are, and where you think, we could actually do business without stepping on the toes of all the other people that are carrying similar brands. Like, where do you think is the most penetration that we can get with your brands through our brand, which is called Shootopia, a multi-brand store? And it was such a great half day. Bought them all lunch and all that kind of stuff. We had this great conversation, and we planted this store, which is going to celebrate its 10th anniversary and has done really well. And I'm so glad I had that conversation. When we talk about those key relationships, these people were partners in that decision, although it was my store, but they're partners as brands in our store, helping deliver our promise to our customers through the products that we provide to them, so that we can promote them properly and get the right amount of profit out of that store, which is my sort of 6P structure that I work with all my clients on. We need to have all of these things flowing simultaneously, and we need to have the right relationships. Getting back to the people portion of the 6Ps, we need to have the right relationships with our clients. We need to have the right relationships with our team. We need to have the right relationships with our suppliers that help deliver our promise.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I love that. I think the more we can lean on each other, and the more we can lean on the businesses that are, above us and between us to our consumers, and just helping us run our operations and our day to day, the better off we're going to be. In today's virtual world, it might not literally be feasible to physically take everybody out to lunch and go, have that conversation, but
Have a virtual
hop on a
coffee,
Zoom and
right?
have a
Yeah.
Zoom coffee hour, whatever, happy hour, and just chat and just talk about it. And I think that that's a fantastic idea, to just lean on the thoughts of the people who probably have a much wider view of the industry and what you're doing than you do, or the person right next door maybe. So
Yeah.
um so you've bought and sold multiple, you've started and sold multiple businesses. You
And bought.
focus on the
Yeah.
exit side of things. Before we go hard down that road though, the
Yeah.
relationship side. So now, jumping over to the health side, a lot of business owners forget to take care of themselves. So you mentioned you're coming off of 1 month of vacation, and that's, like
Mhm.
one thing for me every summer, my family and I, we hop in our RV and we go away for 3 to 4 weeks. I still do some work. I still hop on
Sweet.
some calls and,
Yeah.
and whatnot, but it's certainly not to the level of day-to-day operations. And it, a lot of people have this I can't leave for a lot of different reasons feelings, and usually it's the team's going to mess something up or some version thereof. Sometimes there's an ego of I'm too important and I can't leave for that long. But talk to me about the health side of things. Talk to me about building a business that allows you to step away. Talk to me about even the fitness side. Like, I just, I'm always curious how people are staying in shape and what thing they do. I know for me, I'm up at 5:15 in the morning at the gym. Physically, it does what it does, obviously, but even more so, that is my like mental free flow time where I just feel good, but I also come up with some really good ideas before the world needs me, which is just my time to myself.
I'll start off by saying one of the lines that I use in a lot of my talks and stuff like that, which really is around health, and it's this: you can't have a healthy business if you don't have a healthy mind and body. As the leader of your business, If you aren't physically healthy enough to carry on, if you aren't mentally healthy enough to carry on, your business falls apart. And from a leadership perspective, we need to keep our vessel, ourselves, in as good a shape as we possibly can. And, my journey in health has been up and down over the years. I've been more physically active than I currently am, but I I'm going to try and get, I just lined up before we hopped on here in Canada. Probably I'm going to get one last ski date in. I book off a day a week or I'm either going skiing. So I think we'll get one last one in before it's all gone here on Thursday. I book time in my calendar for these things. I'm going golfing. I'm going to go skiing. My wife and I, do our stretching together and all of this other stuff. And she's a partner at home, and she's even more focused on healthy eating than I am. And she does the majority of the cooking. So from that perspective, we're working on healthy eating. We're working on living that. I have a goal of living a long
Yep.
life. And, in order to do that, you got to be physically healthy. You have to be mentally healthy. And I want my businesses to outlast me as well. So if I want to keep them busy and I'm still leading the charge, even though I'm not doing all the minutia, I've moved myself from detail to dashboard in those businesses, I still need to be healthy in order to lead the charge. And from that perspective, I'm a firm believer in health, and health is different for every single person. But I do know that if you don't have your physical health and you don't have your mental health, it's very hard to lead a healthy
Yeah.
business.
Yeah. It's, everybody should be doing something, and every version of health is so different. What I enjoy
Yeah.
doing, I guarantee the next person probably doesn't enjoy doing that. Some other
Yep.
person does, because I see the same weirdos at the gym every day that I'm there at that time.
Yeah.
But from that perspective, you just need to make it a priority. And yeah, short term, you're losing time doing that stuff for sure. But long term, you're only gaining time because that
Exactly.
healthier version of you will perform way better. And I think a lot of people,
Yeah.
they're afraid to make that sacrifice on the immediate day because they do have something important to do, which makes sense. But
One of the things, Steve, I mean, we could go into time management too, but if you don't actually block that time, I'm an early bird too. I get up at 5 every morning too. And I have some mental stuff that I do, my journaling, my meditation, those kind of things to help me through. But if you don't actually block the time in your calendar to go skiing, to go swimming, to do whatever the things you want to do, take that 20K or 20-mile bike ride, whatever the case is, if you don't put it in your calendar, one thing I can tell you with busy people is that other people will take that time. They will take that time from you. So the first step when I look at this stuff is block some time in your calendar so that nobody else can take it away, because the fires of the day will take that time and you will say, "Oh, I don't have time to go to the gym today. Oh, I don't have time to take that bike ride. Oh, I don't have time to go golfing. Oh, I don't have time to do whatever, play a game of squash, or even eat healthy, prepare a proper meal because it's just been too busy
yeah,
today."
yeah, setting boundaries around your time is an important thing. Like there's we could have a whole podcast episode on time management for
That's
sure. But
absolutely.
one trick that's always helped me is starting at 5 p.m., going earlier in my day as I schedule my meetings. I use the morning to actually just get work done, higher energy, more thought process. And the first thing I do is I do my me stuff. I'm at the gym by 5:35, 5:40, home 7:10, sauna, cold plunge, depending upon the day, do my, make my shake, shower, and then I'm like, all right, it's 8:30, time to start getting some things done. So find your routine, I would say, and just stick to it. Make sure, unless it is truly urgent and timely and all those things don't get in the way. Because you're right, if you don't put it in a calendar, it's easy for you to give that space to something or somebody else. So,
For sure.
well, so 30 years in business, you've sold some businesses that, we all think that, at least when I was younger, oh, you own a business, you can make money while you're sitting on the beach and you're just rich and all of this stuff. And I don't remember how long into business, my first one, that I realized that was not true. It was
Mm.
relatively quick, I think. It was
Yeah.
like weeks and months in. I'm like, wait a minute. I thought I was supposed to be
Yeah.
sitting on a beach right now and rich.
Yeah.
Um, it's a lot of work involved. But like the wealth side of the house, I'm always just curious, like, what are you currently trying to learn, or how are you leveling up your game? And to give you some context, I met a mentor a year and a half ago at this point in time, and he really opened my eyes to the market and stock trading and things like that. And for me, it was always one of those like, oh, I'll buy this thing and in 10 years it'll be worth more. And then I have this portfolio manager and things are good and fine and whatever. And was always pretty naive to it. And then it just came down to this, well, if the stock market supposedly goes up like 8, 9, 10% on average every year over every 20-year span, et cetera, then like, why am I not making 8, 9, 10% all the time? I'm confused. And then you couple that with some other things you start to learn, and you just start to ask questions. And he showed up in my life at the perfect time. And all of a sudden, the market is this entirely new world for me. Now, just disclaimer, I'm still terrible at trading. Like, I'm awful. I finally am at a point where I don't lose money anymore, which is a good spot to be in. But it's super exciting to me to understand the charts and the technical indicators and all this stuff. So I'm just curious, like, what are you learning today? And what's that thing that's kind of exciting to you now about your money, about your wealth, and kind of just thinking about that stuff?
Well, I'm Canadian, and when I look at, I mean, barring the last few months of all the sort of craziness between Canadians and American, which
I feel like
I think is,
I think we're supposed to hate each other right now, by the way. You
yeah, and I just don't see it. So, a lot of my clients are in the U.S., and I just spent a month in the U.S., and I'm going back next week, and so from my perspective, yeah, we're two separate countries and all that kind of stuff, and one thing I hope we remain that way, but we're still best friends. We still have all sorts of
yeah.
stuff going on, and and I like certain things about doing business in the U.S. And so one of the things that I am looking at as far as expanding my business footprint is to open a U.S. based business. And I've got some ideas, and I've been talking to some people around some of the stuff that I'd like to do. So as sort of one of the wealth pieces for me, it's to diversify absolutely into another country, even not just my own country, and having an operable business in another country that is going to provide me another line of income that's completely separate from what I do. And so diversifying not only in the industry, because I already have sort of two diversified, my coaching business and my speaking business, and then I've got my shoe stores. But this other business that we're looking at now is like really trying to understand how Canadians can do business in the US. And I know, like I said, there's a lot of uncertainty right now, which is sort of magnifying a lot of things. But nonetheless, I'm continuing my path through that journey because I do think it's important, it's interesting, and it's something that I want to
Yeah.
do.
No, I love that. And I think layering in multiple things is great, but I also think people mask problems by, let me get into our business, I'll make more money. And if you don't have stability and, you know, whatever you were hoping to
Yeah.
generate from your existing businesses, don't go get another business. But there's
No,
a lot of
exactly.
people out there like, oh, you need to pour everything you have into your business till doing 100 million a year. Well, guess what? Part of being a business owner is like wanting to have some fun and try new things. And, so
Yeah.
diversification, I'm very much a fan of because of that reason, so long as everything is solid behind it. But, um, before we started recording though, you started off with some of your kind of frameworks and the things that you really lean in and coach on. And I think today, every coach seems to have their, here's my saying and here's my thing that I do, but they're all so unique and they're all super helpful. So I'd love to truly just dive into the coaching today and the idea of what you do, helping people create more profits. For me, I have the freedom framework on the back end, and it's my 7 steps that every business owner needs to do to solve the problem that's the most relevant for them, with the whole goal being to unlock their version of freedom. It doesn't mean retirement, because as entrepreneurs, we're never going to
Yeah.
retire, because we're going to work till we die. But what does freedom look like for you, and how do you achieve that? So I know you have a similar outlook on life of, if you want to work 70 hours a week, cool. But if you want to work 5 hours a week and then be a business owner and whatever, then also cool. Let's figure out how we get there. So I'd love for you to start breaking that stuff down.
You know, I have dozens of different frameworks, let's call them. And I think probably one of the best ones here is called, and this one I didn't actually come up with myself. It's called the Value Builder Formula. And the Value Builder Formula, I just think it's good for this particular conversation here today, because I've got a whole bunch of other ones we could tackle on another episode. But I generally put people through the Value Builder assessment. And what it is one of the businesses that I run is called the Exit Ready business. And are you exit ready? And because there's one thing for sure, you will exit your business one day. And I'm talking to you, the listener here right now. You probably know somebody who has passed away prematurely. You probably know someone who has gotten a divorce and had to sell their house or their business or portions of. You probably know somebody who got in a car accident or maybe got cancer or maybe had a long-term disability that has caused major disruption within their business, potentially maybe even the failure of the business. You probably know somebody who went through an area of distress, like let's say COVID, or the new one these days is tariffs and all of how is that going to affect our business, which is totally out of our control and in the control of people that are at a much higher level that we can't do anything about. We just have to deal with the circumstances. So all of these things can cause your business to fail or for you to exit prematurely, because 1 in 2 people exits their business not because they want to, because they have to. So when do you start planning for exit? Today, if you haven't already. And the corporation structure needs to be set up. If somebody comes knocking on your door and wants to buy your 17 stores, are you ready?
No. It was such a
Right.
disaster.
And so But I mean, if you had started that journey 3 or 4 years before to start setting some of this stuff, I'm not saying you'd have 100%, but if you had 50%, now it's more than when you start at the moment of. Even knowing what the valuation of your business is, most small business owners have no idea. It's your buddy on the golf course that says, "Oh, your business is probably worth $1 million." That's not good enough. We know what the value of our stock portfolio is. We know what the value of our house is. We know what the value of our other major assets are. Yet we don't know the value of our business, which could be surpass all of those put together. It amazes me that people don't know the value of their business. So where do you start? You start with taking the Value Builder assessment and understand what the value is of your business and get a sort of a ballpark number of what your value is. And if you get that number and it's not what you expected, you got some work to do. So it breaks it down into 8 categories. And those 8 categories give you a dial. Basically, it's a dial. It says either you're green, you're yellow, or you're red. And let's go to work. And whether you do that work on your own or whether you hire a coach like you or myself or whatever the case is to help you along that journey, at least you have a benchmark to get started so that now I can say, oh, I'm doing really good in these 3. I'm doing okay in these 3, and I'm not doing so well in these 2. But even if those 2 you're not doing so well, it's still maybe more advantageous for you to work on the yellow ones because they're going to actually create more value for you in the shorter term. So we start looking at these, massaging these things and building a plan to say, okay, because getting your business exit ready or getting your business ready to be self-managing or getting your business ready so that you can go and do something else, whatever the case, it's really all the same process.
Yeah. I remember one of the biggest surprises to me in the beginning when I sold my first one was how I was treating my books, my P&L, my balance sheets. And the biggest thing was, as how do I save money on taxes? How do I pay less in taxes? What do I do end of year? Buy all this thing that you don't need that's not free, but kind of a discount, but you're still spending just all this stuff. And you get to the end, it's like, oh, well, based upon all your books, your business is worth this. And you're like, well, what? No, I wanted it to be worth way more. Well, yeah, but you have all these expenses. Well, no. Those are fake. They don't really exist. And then trying to work through the idea of a pro forma that isn't even going to be a
Mhm.
like, if you swing the value by $100,000 on your Excel sheet because you say so, no one's going to give you
Yeah.
100% of that credit back. Eh,
And if you're looking at 2 and 4 and 5 times and 10 times, like 10 times 0
Yeah,
is still 0.
exactly. And that's the thing. It's like, oh, I got 10x in my business. Well, guess what? Like, a $10,000 swing on a 10x multiple is $100,000 impact. And
Yep.
so for me, like the biggest thing I'll throw in here, like my biggest on the first one, eyes open, like, oh boy, was sure, short term, you're probably doing everything with your taxes. And this is by no stretch any tax advice, right? Like
Yeah.
just
No, I
throwing
get it.
that out there. But there's short-term gains and long-term losses, or short-term losses and long-term gains when it comes to this stuff. You got to pick which one you want, and you can't be
Mhm.
surprised when the time comes, either now or later, to figure that piece out. So I love the idea that, maybe the yellow you work on first before the red, even though the red feels bigger, it might have less of an impact. um but man, I remember how surprised I was in that first one, and
Yeah.
it beat me up, and I was like, okay, got to change everything for all the other ones.
It's the first of the 8 key drivers, financial performance. And a lot of small to medium-sized businesses have
Yeah.
terrible books. And you know what? You can't just change them in a month. They have to be like, it takes a couple of years to get some of that stuff, because everybody, when they go into due diligence, and that's a big thing, we're setting up people for due diligence. It's like when they go into due diligence, they're going to look at the last year the heaviest, and then they go back, you know, and light it 5 years past, they're going to sort of be like, okay, it's good to know, but I really need to know the last year and the last 2 years and the last 3 years come into play as well. But if you don't give yourself those sort of times as you're preparing for that exit, so when do you start preparing for exit? Long time. You know, you got to give yourself a good ramp if you want to
Yeah.
maximize that. I'll give you the other 8 key drivers. I know we're not going to have a chance to talk about them today, with a sense of time, but just so that everybody who's listening kind of gets an idea of what they should be starting to think about a little bit. So, financial performance, number one. Number two is growth potential. Okay, what's the growth potential of your particular business and industry? Number three is called the Switzerland structure, which is, are you overly dependent upon any one customer, any one employee, or any one supplier? With overdependence causes a discount. Okay. Number three is the valuation teeter totter, which really has to do with cash flow. Does your business provide cash flow, or does it take more cash flow, right? Recurring revenue is a big one. How can you prove recurring revenue to a new owner? Do you have recurring revenue? I'll just use my shoe stores as an example. You know, you would think that I don't have anybody contracted like a cell phone sort of supplier or a cable, saying, "Hey, I've got you on, you're a cable subscriber and we've got you for the year." Nobody's subscribed to buy shoes at my store. But I can prove through our point of sale system that 63% of our customer base are returning customers. And if somebody's going to buy my line of revenue, that they could probably count on 63% of the revenue that I had last year returning again, because year after year, that we're sort of between 60 and 65% of returning customers, and the rest are new. Good to know, easy to prove if you actually set this stuff up, because you need to be able to prove it in due
Yep.
diligence. By the way, even if you're not willing to sell or wanting to sell, but you want to go after more money for that next store or that next business, you got to do the same proof for your banker. They want the same information, right? So, what's the recurring revenue? What's your monopoly control? Which basically is, are you 5 Mile famous? Are you the place to go for what you do in your area of business? Number seven is customer satisfaction. Can you prove it? Do you have NPS scores? What's your Google review rating? All of these different, like, how are you being rated on the job that you do for your clients? And number eight is hub and spoke. And hub and spoke, we've talked fairly at length about, is, are you the hub and spoke of your business as the business owner? Does every business go through you? Does every client go through you? Does everything go through you? Do you hire? Do you fire? Are you the person to make all the decisions? And if you are, that's discounting your business,
Yeah.
because nobody can be you. And so if they're buying and you're leaving and you're making all those decisions, then they're going to discount your business incredibly because you're walking out the door with all that
Yep,
knowledge.
100%. I love that. And just for reference, I would probably buy a shoe subscription with how much I buy shoes. If it was like, hey, you
I
should
love it.
pay this monthly, 89 bucks a month, and you get a new pair of shoes every other month, and they end up being at a
Yeah,
20% discount, and like once a year you get like a really good sneaker or something like that. I would do that because I buy enough sneakers. So I'm just business
I love
idea,
it.
throw that out your
You're the
way.
kind of client that keeps us in business, Steve.
So, but yeah, no, I all of those steps are important, and a lot of people watching, listening to this are going to be online infopreneurs or service providers. These
Yep,
all can count towards you. The 5 Mile Famous
for sure.
might be like niche specific in your industry, so
Yep.
there's some conversion to do, but thinking about these things is important. And I'll just, from my end, the largest exit that I ever navigated and went through due diligence was a 50-55 million dollar valued kind of transaction. That transaction actually ended up tanking because of an agreement that had been made about 2.5 years prior, where it was assumed that the business was a C corp, but it was actually an S corp election. And that little, like, on the piece of paper where you check that box, it's like a quarter of an inch away, a few centimeters. That was a 20 to 30% change in valuation. I'll let you do your math and figure that out. But something so seemingly insignificant drastically changed and cannibalized and killed a $50 million deal, all because of some issues. So when it comes to this stuff, and maybe you're sitting in a situation where, oh, my business is never going to be that, maybe, but your business might be 2 million, 1 million. You don't want to kill that deal because of an error like that. So just think through some of these things and just build that list of what you're going to do. Reach out to Pete to find those things. But the other thing, Pete, I was kind of intrigued about was you had a multiple P framework that you had kind of started to talk
Yeah.
about. So I think that's a great
Yeah.
one for the typical person here. I'd love you to, as we near time, just kind of talk about that one a little bit.
Yeah. Cool. I mean, I wrote a little book on it. It's called The Business Owner Breakthrough, and the P's go like it's an operating structure. Essentially, we have all of our meetings on it. We live by this operating structure, and the operating structure is this: the first P is your promise, and your promise is not your mission. It's not your vision. It's not internally focused. It's the one you shout out to the world. This is what we do. So the promise. I mean, we could do a half-day session on this, but essentially, the promise is what's their pain? How do you uniquely take them through to their gain? Because without understanding that process and having the right communication, the right language, all of the other stuff, the marketing side, the promotion side of that, we don't have a business because everybody buys a better life. It doesn't matter if you're buying coaching, if you're buying shoes, if you're buying a steak, if you're buying a trip, you're always got this idea that does this money equate to the better life that I want to live? So that's the promise. Once we have our promise down, we need to have full alignment. And I find this so often there is an alignment here because we've been promising something maybe for 10 years and the promise is no longer as relevant as it once was. But the next set of P's are your product, or if you're a service-based business, your service, right? Your product, your process, and your people. So what is that product? Does it align and does it actually solve the problem? Which that's our promise. The process, is the process out of your head? And I'm talking to you, the listener here today. Is it out of your head and onto paper, onto video, onto various formats that other people can be aligned and assigned that accountability so they can do it without your involvement? We've talked a lot about that. Because having the right people, which is the next one, the right client base, the right team, and the right outsourced suppliers that help deliver your promise, deliver that. And when you've got that aligned, the next P, which I've added since I wrote the book, but it's always talked about, is how are you promoting it so that you can have the right amount of profit. And it's only once we take our journey as entrepreneurs to the point of profitability where we can start thinking about freedom, We can start thinking about the things that we want to do. We can start thinking, because up until then, those startup times and everything, it's like all hands on deck. I've got it. You've done it too, Steve. I know you have. It's like we're just going to plow through this and get this done because we
Yep.
have to. That's startup. What I'm talking about here is sort of after startup, where you're trying to get some of that other stuff and you're saying, now we've got this humming. What am I going to do with some of this profit? Am I going to buy a triplex? Am I going to take some time off? Am I going to hire another person to help me do the sales or to do the bookkeeping or to do whatever the case is? But using this formula and looking through all of the things, we go through our weekly meetings and we talk about, are we still aligned with our promise? What do we need to do? How do we need to change our product? What about our process? Is everything still working there? Great. How about our people? Do we need another team member? Give me the updates on all of our customers. Or maybe a new rep has changed with one of our things, and that's one of our outsource suppliers. We need to know that. And then what are we going to do to promote our business? And then we're going to talk and share. And I share with my leadership team, here's our profitability. Here's where we're at. We're all accountable. It's not just me that knows this. Everybody knows this. We're all on the line on this.
Yeah.
And so when we go through these 6Ps and work through that, you can see how just having that conversation around each of those things every time you sit down with your leadership team, and whenever you come up against any sort of battle or any sort of thing that you're trying to deal with, in framing it into this, it aligns with everything that you do in order to grow, in order to succeed in business.
Love it. Love that. Love that. Take those 6 Ps, write them down, and make sure you're thinking about those. That is the best advice that I can give on that one right there. But well, Pete, where can people find out more information about you? Where can they connect with you if they want to? Where's the best place to find you?
Yeah. Best place is my website, Pete-Mohr. It's Mohr. I like to say the right way to spell more. So Pete-Mohr, Mohr.com. From there, you can get to the Exit Ready business, where you can take your Value Builder assessment and get your first score. You can get to the Colby Coach, or you can get to my podcasts or any of the free downloads and all that other stuff. There's all the websites link out of that one. Socially, you can connect with me on LinkedIn, on Instagram, on Facebook. Just type in Pete Mohr. You'll find me, as well as on YouTube.
All right. Well, Pete, thank you so much for the time. I know I learned a couple of things out of this. I know everybody listening and watching did as well. Thank you again. Really appreciate it, and hope you have a great rest of your day, man.